by asking everybody if they have any questions straight out of the gate that they would like me to address or see if I'm going to address, or if you have any expectations of me. Let them loose now. On a scale from like 1 to 5, how many of you would say that you are, do we have anybody that's ACFRE certified or CFRE certified in the group? No? That's a certified fundraising executive. Or an ACFRE is the Advanced Certified Fundraising Executive from Associates in Fundraising Professionals. Do we have anybody who has worked on a lot of donor retention and planned giving? Kind of like in the middle. Where would you say you're at? Like a 3? You're not like an expert. You're a 10. You're an expert.
No, out of 10.
Oh, out of 5. 5-star rating. So like a 3, a 2, a 3. You guys know the 5-finger agreement rule in meetings. Like if you totally agree, you're 5. Okay. We'll just move along. So everybody feels like they would like to retain more donors, right?
Sure.
All right. That's a good place to start. Well, I have been actually working in donor retention and fundraising for about, oh my gosh, it's my 15th year this year, and this is my second career. So, and I worked in the broadcasting field before that. So we basically did this with viewership and listenership. So it's really the same exact theory behind both of them. What I think is better with nonprofit land is that we're just much kinder to the people that we actually want to be our friends and our donors. So let's talk a little bit about attrition, retention, and prospecting. Does everybody know what those terms mean? Okay. So this is lovely, isn't it? For about the last 8 to 9 years, about the last 8 years, this hasn't shifted much. It goes back and forth about half a percentile. So we lose about half the donors that we keep, and we're right in the middle. But you get a new donor and you don't want to become too attached because 50% of them leave you. And then this is direct mail. Our direct mail cold prospecting is when you buy a list or you don't have any relationship with that person or that donor in advance, and you cold prospect. And that's when folks are sending out large direct mails, or you're getting lists from like the voter registry. By the way, those are really cheap. If you ever want to actually get a direct mail list, voter registry is the way to go. You can get those from the county. Yes?
Rochelle, help me understand the top 2 numbers. Over what time period are you talking about?
A year, annually.
So you lose roughly half of your donors every year.
You lose about half, and what we're saying in attrition and what the attrition rate is last year but not this, or this year but not last. So they are either in a 12-month cycle, looking over 2 years, they either gave in the last year's cycle and they haven't given in this year's cycle, or they didn't give in last year's and they did this and they had given before. Your attrition rate's about half.
And what group, what kind of industries or what are they?
Who gathers that info?
No. Who does that represent? All nonprofits?
All nonprofits. Mm-hmm. Yep, and those are the surveys that are done nationwide through either Chronicles and Philanthropy runs one, and Associates in Fundraising, AFP runs one, Associates in Fundraising Professionals runs one, and then there's another one. There's another one that's run, but these are kind of the same, they all say about the same. We're right between like 40 and 45%.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So, if you're doing about 2.5% off a list that you get from the county, say you go and get a list of email addresses or home addresses and you send out a mailing and you receive 2.5% of those mailings back, which is pretty small, you're doing great. You're doing great. But the lesson from that is sorry that I put that song in your head if you know that song, but love the ones you're with. So how do you actually go and keep the ones that you have, and then how do you get back the ones that may have slipped away for just a little while? So let's start with whose job is it to retain those donors? And do you think these are equally split? I think this has to do very personally, and it's subjective to your organization, but I have to say all of the above all the time. There has to be a certain level of buy-in from every single one of these jobs, every single one of these roles, in order to effectively retain your donors. You need all 3 working engines on this airplane to what airplane has 3 engines? All of the engines need to be going at full throttle. It's one that goes like this. And you really do need actually everybody in there. I had a little bit of notes on this. So, how do you break down these roles? Does anybody have these roles broken down for their donors or their donor retention about who does what in each one of these areas already? You're working on it? It's a work in progress all the time? So really, I see the executive director's role is help analyzing all the data and acting, figuring out what that donation plan is, what that fundraising goal is, interpreting what the board wants to do, and then creating that operations role and interpreting all the data. The development team's role is really to get all of the data, collect all of the data, and do the administrative work behind the data. And when I say data, I'm talking about all the information about your donors, all the creepy information you keep about your donors. It is creepy, but it's necessary. And then the board's role is to help analyze all that data and act regularly. So it has to be like through a committee and on a regular basis. Hopefully your donor or your fundraising committee is meeting a minimum of 4 times a year. So if they're meeting quarterly, they have a plan and they're instituting the plan. This month we're putting out letters. This quarter we're going to do phone calls. We're just kind of working all of those fundamentals of development in there. And really, it's up to your organization to kind of color code and give priority to the donors who are either lapsed or the donors that you already have. So if they gave last year, but they haven't given this year, how are you categorizing them? Real easy to color code, you know? Just give a few colors and then ask your development group, your development committee to say, let's go after the cream of the crop. How are we going to do that? So, analyzing your data. How many in you here have a data tracking system? A donor database? Specific donor database or something like an Excel spreadsheet even works? Okay, so these are not endorsed, but these are some of the highest recommended ones when you go with the reviews on them. Don't ever ask me about Razor's Edge if you want my true opinion about what that beast is. But these are the highest rated donor databases. If you want to dig in deeper with me on what donor database your organization should be using, I am very glad to be that resource for you. I have some really good spreadsheets. It gives, I've done kind of a spreadsheet that gives out, you're gonna have to wait till I move though, because I looked high and low for that flash drive yesterday. It gives out like just the features of each one and approximately the cost of each one. Some of them are really inexpensive for your organization, but I cannot stress highly enough, and this is, hot kettle black here because we're struggling with this in our own organization right now. I've been here 6 months and we still don't have a donor database. It's something that we are actually moving towards in the next 6 months. So, yes ma'am.
Is anybody using anything
That's
different?
here?
We use Donor Perfect.
Donor Perfect, yeah.
But I'm in the process of evaluating all the others. Like I've been
Okay.
talking to Razor's Edge about their e-tapestry. It's a lower level. Yeah.
Everybody
but
goes, "Ugh."
here's the thing. I think Donor Perfect's awful.
It's gotten
Awful.
worse, and so I would have a year ago said, Donor Perfect, I'm on board. And the last time I was using it and trying to pull reports, I had a really difficult time with their reporting
Did you
systems.
cuss? Because I cuss a lot.
I cussed a lot. I did. I really got on with my development associate, and I got on with their chat and their support team, and they were just going through so many changes, and I am not a fan. I am not a fan of what they've changed.
What's the one you recommend the most?
I am really liking Little Green Light. I actually like what their platform is. I feel like it's earlier Donor Perfect, the way Donor Perfect used to run. There's another one that I have on. I don't know anything about Salsa. I've used Salesforce, but not in this capacity as a donor database. I don't know that I would.
We use Salesforce at Seaport.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was meant more for sales than
It
it was
is.
for donors.
Mm-hmm.
But the other two I'm looking at are Network for Good,
Yep.
which seems really simple and easy to use, and Neon CRM.
Oh, I don't have that one. But I have Network for Good on my chart. So I will look, as soon as I move, I will get that flash drive and I will get that to you. But if you really want to analyze, it is a subjective thing. It's like buying a car. It is, what kind of bells and whistles are you, how tall are you, my seat doesn't fit correctly, but it fits Carrie. It's a very customized piece of equipment that you're gonna be using to gather your data. If you are using an Excel spreadsheet right now, that's perfectly fine. It's probably worth your while to look into transferring the information into into a donor management tool. And I think that almost all of these will take your Excel spreadsheet and immediately import all the data and populate these into them. I think every single one of these does that automatically for you. It is a minimal nominal fee yearly. I haven't seen one except for this one. That one's not nominal by any means. That's the Cadillac of things, and that's really utilized. The reason this one always comes up in the top 5 is because it's utilized so much by educational institutions. I mean, they are the mecca of development.
But they do have a lower level that's called eTap.
They do,
That is
yeah.
not as expensive.
And it's all cloud-based. Yeah, totally cloud-based. And I used eTapestry a long time ago, like 15 years ago, when it was it was like one of the very first cloud-based pieces out there. But it had some real creepy features to it too. It had some real creepy tracking features with people's tax filings.
Oh.
So, if they bought a boat, you could see it and you could add it to their assets, and there was some interesting prospecting that it did in those things. So, yeah. We can get real creepy on people. But it's sometimes necessary when you're looking to find out, you're doing a capital campaign, and you want to find out how much Carrie can give to that building of, the wing, and how we're going to name it after her dog. So, there we go. Does anybody have any questions about just tracking data? I cannot stress enough, track your data. I don't care if you're doing it on a yellow legal pad, or hopefully you're not, I will help you. You're not, or you're doing it in an Excel spreadsheet. You need the data. Every one of those galas that you have, every little touch point that you have with your donors, you need to be updating that data. That needs to be at the top of your mind all the time. Think of every time you've logged onto a Disney thing, how much they want to know. Did you change your address? Did you get a new phone number? So, how do we want to manage that data? I break it into 4 areas, and this is the same as it is with Salesforce. This is the same as it is when you look at a project. Just break it into the basic 4 areas of the ground fruit, the low-hanging fruit, the bulk of the fruit, and apparently it's apple season. So, the ground fruit being the donors who give regularly. How many of you have recurring donors? And that means they give either on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis. They do, you have a recurring, that is the lowest, that's the ground, that's not even low hanging. It doesn't even hang, it's just sitting on the ground waiting for you. That's the easiest one to manage. You need to actually be subscribing to that ask and inform methodology. Really all those donors care about is knowing more about your agency and being kept up to date on how you're utilizing their resources. Those are also the donors that are the easiest ones to move into a developed planned giving notification. So you want to make sure that those are the donors that are constantly being alerted to any changes in your planned giving programs, any type of new functionality you have with your planned giving. Say you open up an endowment with the community foundation, you would notify these donors that there is now an endowment that they can give to at through the community foundation that is going to be there in savings in perpetuity. So those are the ones, and these are the ones statistically that actually tend to be the best planned giving prospects. They're the ones who have left you in their will, and eventually you get a $15 gift monthly, but eventually you'll probably get a very large gift, an end-of-life gift or a planned gift from them. You also want to make sure at tax time they know about their options for giving tax
refunds or...
Yeah, it's the new one through Colorado State that I will be going to Colorado Nonprofit Association and coming back to you all and reporting on if you're not getting to go to the conference at the end of the month. I'm going to the specific trek on the new rules about how people can give directly off of their taxes. But those are the ones that you want to keep it. I'm thinking about the 70 and a half when you're in your retirement place and you can, when you hit that that 70 and a half. Those are the donors you want to constantly remind how they can give in those ways. The low fruit, the donors who give semi-regularly. You decide what semi-regularly is for your organization, just like you decide what a major gift is for your organization. I would say for our organization, it would be once, a couple times a year. You know, maybe they gave to a special project that we had, or a special fund that we were raising funds for, or we know that they participated in Douglas County Gives, any of those folks. So what do you do with them? You ask them for a larger gift on a regular basis through your letters. You know that they give at the $150 level, you ask for a $200 gift. You inform them of all the news that's going on in your organization. You recognize, and then you constantly try to develop those larger gifts or get them to give on a regular basis and become the ground fruit. Bulk fruit, that is really where the majority of our donors lie. When you look at your database, you're going to see that majority of the donors are either lapsed, and by lapsed, that's either they gave this year but not last. You can go back about 3 years into your data. On many of the databases, you can go back even further than that and see what their trajectory was the entire year. You can pull out all kinds of fun reports with that. These are the ones that I really want to concentrate on, these lapsed donors, because this is where I think you can really fight that attrition and retention rate so much. This is the part I think we ignore the most, and we don't look at those donors enough. And so, when we talk about that, this is what I'm going to ask you to look at. This reach out, this reaching out to them on a continuous basis, even if they have said no, or, well, if they've said no, leave them alone. But if they have not responded, or you haven't got, constantly reaching out to those donors and letting them know that you have that you have a rally that you would love them to come to, that you have a gala, that you have an event, that you are doing whatever. This is the one I would ask you to focus the most of your time on. And when you're looking at that data, really look at who you want to focus the most on. That's that color coding I was talking about. If your group, your committee, wants to focus on ones that just gave last year but haven't given yet in this year, or didn't give last year but gave 24 months ago, code those as your red ones, and you're going to really concentrate on having board members write them letters, reach out and invite them to coffee, talk about the organization. You're going to find out a lot about your donors. Most of the time, it's the fact they haven't been asked again, or they feel like they didn't get any information on how their gift was used. And that's sometimes just a breakdown in our development cycles. Sometimes you're going to find out that somehow you really ticked them off, and you did something in your organization that really ticked them off, and it's a great time to have a conversation about a change, an administrative shift, a philosophy shift for your mission, whatever those pieces are. That's a really good time, because that's usually the person who's out talking in the community like, I didn't like what the Humane Society did with that this last time. They quit all their spay-neuter programs, and I was really, really into spaying all the cats in the area. You're really going to find out what those donors are talking about. The sweet fruit are the ones that are the potentials. Those are kind of that casting the, wide net, the ether. Unfortunately, this is where a lot of our board members think we should focus our time on. They think, well, we have these great businesses out here and none of them are giving to us. We've never had any contact with them. We have no relationship with them. These folks you've had a relationship with at some point. It's much easier to reach out to an old friend than it is to make a new one, unless you're me and I make lots of new friends all the time. Anyways, so does that help everybody? Does that give you kind of a breakdown in there? Okay, y'all are saying yes because you're nice. So, I have to do this way, I'm sorry. I belong to my hero, Joan Geary, and this is part of the Nonprofit Leadership Lab. I'm going to send you this presentation, but if you are not a member of the Nonprofit Leadership Lab, you can't get through on this link, so I give you that first. But she has such great tips, I didn't want to have to reinvent the wheel, and she always encourages us to share this information with nonprofit leaders. So, get a re-engagement group together. This is that middle-of-the-road fruit I was talking about. These are the ones that are those potential donors, or those ones that have given before, but you've lost contact with in some way. This is the charge of that board fundraising committee. And I love what she says first. The charge of a board fundraising committee is often less than clear. How many of you feel that way? Like, you're on the fundraising committee. Great. Okay, so what do you see? And a lot of times those board members, and I have 2 board members in this room to you that I'm speaking to right now, but they think of themselves as pseudo-supervisors for events. And that happens a lot. So we really need to replace that with this vision about these committee partners who are actually going to do these tasks. I have found when I have gotten fundraising committees to really work in these ways, they love it because this is a task and we have a strategy and we have a plan and these are the people that we're looking at and this is what we're doing. So you want this handful of board members and at least one staff member. Don't ever leave them alone to their own devices. And hopefully you've got somebody who's in marketing or has some data experience or something like that. And then it can be done as your full board as well. There's another tool on here I can actually send to you. We're using it with our board this afternoon that helps them gather an army of followers. And it's basically a worksheet that you have them fill out. And our board's going to be doing that this afternoon because we are gathering all of our information for our end of year mailing. And we have a really weak database. And so I need to build it up. I need a place to really start with, and that's what we're doing. Collect that data any way you can. I think I hate the term beating that horse, but that's what it is. But did they give a gift? Did they buy a ticket? Did they come to your ride or your walk? Did they buy a silent auction? Silent auction people are often, I go to a gazillion galas. I buy so many silent auction things and hardly any of those organizations gather my information. So get Boulder Events to come, use the iPads, and get all my information because you are getting your weight in gold for what the cost is to gather that information with one of those services. You are going to get it back on keeping me as a donor because you already made a connection with me. Okay. Let's see, and then analyze the data as a group. This is what I was talking about with really figuring out who you want to target. Do you want to target the people that bought an event ticket and you just haven't ever talked to them again? Do you want to target the people who gave last year but not this? Just consider the degree of connectedness to the gift. Make sense? All right. And then create your plan. Is your committee going to meet 4 times a year? That's what I recommend. They meet 4 times a year. In each one of those quarters, they have a task. This time we're going to write letters to these folks and we're all going to sign them. This time we're going to actually reach out and send an invitation to a small event at somebody's house. We're just going to have 50 people. We have a board member who has a beautiful view that looks out on the open space, and we're going to serve wine and cheese. And these are the only people we're inviting. They haven't given, but this is what our focus is. All kinds of things you can do. I can go on and on about all the things you can do with these donors and ways you can reach out. You can call them, you can send them MailChimp emails, you can do anything you can until they either tell you to stop calling them or emailing them or contacting them, hopefully not, or they come back into the fold because you've really invited them. You're not asking them for a gift. You're not actually soliciting them at all. You're wanting them to understand more about your mission and you really just want to make friends with them again. All right, then you ask them for a gift. And then I'm going to give you this sample letter. Oh, that I bent the crap out of, sorry. If you want one, I know you want one digitally, let me know, I will send it to you. This is a sample letter, there's several of them. There's someone who's given an individual gift, there's a sample letter for a ticket buyer, there's someone who came to your ride or your walk and how to contact them again, and then, setting some kind of house party, some sort of re-engagement, come back to us, see us, you can theme it, you can do all kinds of fun things with it. So, with that, I ran through that in about 15 to 20 minutes. Tell me what questions you have. While I turn my back on you and go back to this slide. Nobody?
One observation, and I think you connected it later on, but originally you said it was the executive director, board, and
Development
team's responsibility. Staff, you mentioned later, that maybe staff should be the fourth leg of your, or fourth
Hopefully-
engine on your.
Aren't they the
I give
development
another
team?
presentation about how every one of the staff is in your development team.
Oh,
That's
fine.
part of their job. It should be written in their job description, because then you don't have people at the front who get programs and services who say, that's really, we are a nonprofit,
Yeah.
this is our revenue source, this is
Yeah.
how we run. We need you to collect that data, we need you to help us interpret that data, input that data, whatever that is.
My mind defaulted because we have a specific development team.
Yes. Everybody wears that hat. And I had to actually give this presentation when I had a really wonderful man in our wildlife rehab department who never wanted me to give tours to our major donors. And I was like, Bob, we need to have a chat. He's like, that's not part of the job. We only, have 1 million raccoons and we make the squirrels better. And I said, Bob, if you want to keep making the squirrels better, and I'm going to help you build a better raccoon habitat, you're going to let me have major donors in here, and you and I are going to develop what that looks like. I'm not going to come in and tell you what to do, but you are in the development team, so yeah. But staff, you're absolutely right. They have to be a part of it. And I say, make this part of your staff. Don't make development part of the mystery of what you're doing. It's not, it gets put in this little weird silo, and everybody thinks, well, I'm in program and services, and I don't have to understand. Make this part of what your communication is to your entire staff, to your whole group. This is what we're doing. This is the plan that we developed, and this is how we're moving forward. These are the board members that are doing it. If you know of somebody who gave to us before or came to a walk that you would like to put on this list, ask your staff members about that. Give them all that information. Be as transparent with this process as you would anybody. So, yes,
One
sir.
other question, Rochelle. You said you're going to some kind of training on
Mhm.
changes to the tax?
Colorado Nonprofit Association is having their annual conference at the end of October, third week of October, somewhere in there. And Rennie Fagan, the director, is doing a special track on the new options that
changes.
people are going to have with their taxes and how they can give to registered Secretary of State folks directly through. Like, it's not just the list that you used to see on the last page. It's now going to be any registered Secretary of State and how we can communicate that to our donors.
So
So,
there's one down at the library in Castle Rock. They're just doing a.
They're gonna do the talking circuit?
Yeah.
Okay.
so are they gonna have the
So-
conversation more so
Oh.
from the idea that, getting, on your taxes, not necessarily that donors are getting the same tax credits as before? That was a conversation that we had with some of my board members, is that the new tax laws are causing, because there's not as much itemizing anymore,
Mhm.
that causing people that have traditionally donated to you and gotten a credit, no longer will be getting that credit.
They aren't, and so I think
That's
that
a
is to
challenge.
offset it, yes.
Well, no, I
somewhat,
think
and
it's a
there was some
challenge to understand
It is,
from an
yes, it is,
organization,
for sure.
for these organizations to realize that people that said, oh yeah, well, I'll just take it off of my taxes, many people are not gonna be able to take it off their taxes
Well, that
anymore.
started last year. Now you're
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2018.
Right,
But
that final.
Is there some laws changing, or are you saying that there's a different mechanism for giving?
Different
There's a different
mechanism.
mechanism for giving that they've worked with the Secretary of State and the Colorado Department of Revenue together. From what I understand, what the Budget Committee and the legislature did was they went through all of the tax credits about 3 years ago. And I can give you more info on how this actually came to be, but how I think that this is my theory, is that they were going, we, being the nonprofit community, had solicited the legislature to put a bill on the 2017, I think it was, 2016, 2017 appropriations bill to create a new tax credit for anybody who created an endowment. And they would have received a very large tax break if they had given to an endowment. The state legislature and the budget committee said, we have too many of these. We have enterprise zone credit, we have child care tax.
They're trying to get
we
rid
have-
of a lot of those.
a lot. And they said there were a lot on the books that nobody was using anymore. So they wanted to create a program to go through and see what people were utilizing. And I think this is one of the things that kind of fleshed out with it and with the way that the taxes changed, I think. So kind of as I've been following it, as we've been, lobbying for that endowment tax credit and things like that. So I'm